'Tis the season to shine with H&M. Discover the holiday collection and find fashionable pieces for your wardrobe or for under the tree. Get inspired and dazzle with this year's glam. From tuxedo styles, bow detailed pieces, impressive prints, and more. From unforgettable looks to unforgettable gifts. With fashion finds to home decor, find it all at H&M. Treat your loved ones and yourself this season. Shop in-store or at hm.com.
Bienvenidas al podcast Dos Bold Latinas. Aquí están sus hosts, Jatna Abreu
y Josibel Madera Vialets, dos latinas feministas born in Santo Domingo y in New York.
Passionate about Latina empowerment, Spanglish,
learning, growth, and so much more.
Hola, mujeres. In today's episode, we wanted to explore more about why is it that the Latino culture is not as open when talking about sex in general. Es básicamente un tabú hablar sobre ese tema, especialmente con nuestra familia. So today, we will be having a conversation with Latina sex therapist Paola Andrea Rodriguez, la cual nos va a hablar un poquito de por qué es que esto pasa en nuestra cultura and how we can start opening up a little more about it and maybe educating people about it. So welcome to our podcast, Paola.
Welcome, Paola. Yay!
Hey guys,
we're being bold here. As those Latinos, we're definitely going to be bold here today.
This is boldness at its mostest. Yes, guys, Rosabella and Jana, thank you so much for having me. I think this is a topic, like you said, that's taboo. And we just, sexual health and sexual education is just such an important part of developing our own sexual voice. So I'm super excited to do this with you guys, and I always appreciate people that reach out to me, because if you're willing to listen, I am willing to talk.
Great. Awesome. But, to kick it off, Paola, we want to know more about you first. So, primero cuéntanos un poco de ti, so de dónde eres, a dónde vives, y lo más importante, why did you decide to become a sex therapist as a Latina?
Okay, awesome. So, guys, yo nací en Bogotá, Colombia, and curiosity was what led me into this field. I've been a psychotherapist way before I became a sex therapist. I grew up in Colombia in the 90s, where there was a lot of terrorism. And I always, question, why do people behave the way that they do? So really, curiosity was what led me to the field of psychology. We relocated to the United States cuando tenía como 12 años. And then I just, started going to school and went to graduate school, got my psychology degree, and then I relocated to Boston. And in Boston was when one of my mentors was going through the training of becoming a sex therapist. And he got so busy with cases that he said, Paula, are you interested in this? And I'm like, oh, I don't know. What does this mean? And when I started talking about sex, even with ongoing clients, oh my God, you guys, it was like Christmas all over again. Right? Because sexuality is just so connected to the self, to the body, to the mind. So I just fell in love with it. I was intrigued. And so I did my training up in New York. And now I'm down here in South Florida. And, Miami is a very interesting city. It is crazy to believe that I am one of the few sex therapists, even in the city, bilingual, bicultural. And my next endeavor is just to really talk to my Latino community. Because, we have this thing where it's like, la señora me dijo que si le digo al niño, so we have all these myths and all this passed down little chismecitos, right? That sometimes get in the way of us learning about our own sexuality. So I am excited. I didn't know that in Miami, there wasn't enough of us. So it's just exciting, not only to be able to provide to community, but to also talk in my native language, in Espanol, be able to provide therapy like that as well.
That's awesome. Love it. So it's like curiosity, and it's like we're sets. It's like we have to be curious also ourselves to identify sexuality and how to get better. I mean, guys, I wouldn't be bold. Like So it's like I just turned 32 years old and I still feel like I have lots to learn about my body and how to be better. with pleasure. So, and guys, when I first met Paola, I was so surprised. She lives in Miami, and John and I live in Grand Rapids, and we couldn't find anyone here that speaks Spanish. And I was surprised in Miami that she's one of the very few. So, and just to put it out there, we found her as using the hashtag Latina Sex Therapist. So for any of you guys creating a community with hashtags, it definitely does work. So I was super excited when we got to connect online. So Paola, I mean, at the beginning, you know, Jana mentioned the taboos and everything. Do we want to start out as us as a woman? I know that I would tell my mom, some of my aunts, if like, hey, do you masturbate? Do you use a vibrator? They're like, muchacha, tú estás loca. They'll be like, no, you don't do that. I've had people say, you know, that's like very taboo, that it's very bad for us to do that. But I was like, but no, I was listening to a podcast that was saying that's for us, for self-exploration, that is part of self-care. So can you talk to us a little bit about that? Because I'm definitely intrigued. So I could go out there and educate my family about that too.
Yeah. Send all your tias. We need to have a tia party because I heard a lot of stuff from my tias as well. So you guys, so let's start with, right, because there is this myth that if we talk about sexuality at an early age, les vamos a poner la idea en la cabeza, right? And they're going to get pregnant or they're going to get somebody pregnant. This is not true. When we have early sex education, preferably, this would be my dream, that school and home align, right? This predisposes you to better sexual health. So I'm going to bring Sweden as an example. In Sweden, kids learn about sex very early, and it is not tied to a morality issue. When you get early sex education, you're less likely to be a victim of sexual assault, less teen pregnancies, less STDs, and people have sex at an older age, okay? There's a lot of research around this. And so that's the first thing, that que tenemos que, o sea, desafiar esa idea que si les hablamos a los niños de la sexualidad, that somehow they're going to have sex early. Because kids, and especially through puberty, you already start feeling all these changes in your body. The other thing is that as Latinas, you know, we're taught to play a role, right? The role of the wife, the role of the partner. And we have this myths, you know, talking about the tias. I would overhear my tias talk about, well, you know, if you don't have sex with your husband, you know, ese va y lo consigue en otro lado, right? So it is, so now sex becomes an obligation versus a free choice. And it is understood that sex for men is a must. And men here, si no lo usas, se te cae, right? And so we have all these myths, right? And then where is women's desire? Who talks about how women work, right? And I would say also, you guys, generational trauma, right? If one of our tias or grandmother, because, you know, they come from this upbringing, machista culture, the woman is supposed to serve the man. You know, I've heard some clients even say to me, guys, mi abuela me dijo, cierra los ojos until it's over, right? So imagine all these messages. Religion can be very right, wrong, black, white. So it induces a lot of guilt and shame. And you know, as Latinas, we have guilt in our soup. Sazón, papita, pollo, y guilt, right? That's a thing. And so ladies, in order for us, I'm going to use the analogy of Emily Nagoski. Guys, she's a sex researcher. She has the book, Come As You Are. I completely recommend it. She also has a workbook that comes with it, Come As You Are workbook. And she says that we're all born with this fertile plot of land where ideas are planted about our body, relationship, masturbation, sex, body image. And as we grow, then we realize that we have this beautiful garden. And I actually have a picture of a garden to show you guys. I know that we're not doing video. And in this garden, as we grow, we got to go down each row and rip away the messages that no longer serve me and replant the ones that I want to grow into. If I grew up in a household where religion was supposed to keep me safe, but it gave me really negative messages about sex, then I have to grieve this idea that even though this is what I learned from religion, when it comes to sexuality, it's caused a lot of guilt and shame. So first, learn the myths that we grew up in our culture, guys, and think about what were those messages that are hindering me from exploring my body, from exploring myself, because as you said, it is a part of self-care. Sexual health is part of self-care, right? So I would say break up with the myths, understand how you want to grow into, and starting there. So let me pause. You guys, tell me, does this sound familiar? When I talk about the myths, what were some of the myths that you grew up with? I'm Colombian. I have my own myths. You guys are Dominicanas. I can hear the beautiful accent that I love. All right. Tell me, I wonder, are there any myths that you guys have heard through friends or anything that you grew up?
Yeah, I think for me specifically, like even though my mom always, I have a sister and a brother. And so, there's two of us, like females. And I think she tried as much as she could to kind of like explain more on the, not necessarily like sexuality, but it was more on the like the female, like menstruation, like at some point in your life, you're going to get your period type of thing. And that was more what she was focused on. Like, so we were prepared. Then like, at some point you're going to like somebody and then you're going to want to, you know what I mean? Like sex is a thing. Like she never really did that. It was more like we learned that like after, you know what I mean? Like after like going to school and then them talking about it and then just like listening to other people or just like, watching movies and things like that. Like, I don't know what is it about the Latino community, like families that they just feel uncomfortable, like I feel like it's uncomfortable for them to talk about those things and like to talk to their children about something so, I don't know, like weird and sexual, like from a young age. So I feel like they leave it to the school system, I want to say, I don't know, or like the, society or like TV or whatever for you to learn about those things. So that kind of was my personal experience, honestly.
Yeah,
and
mine
was
was
from a lot of fear, you guys. I think it stems from a lot of fear, right? Because our parents are afraid that something, and it could be their own unresolved trauma, because we know that unfortunately Latino community, already we don't talk about a lot of things, right? Like si algo pasa en tu casa, you don't tell anybody, right? We just, everything is fine, we have to present. So that's already kind of like something that's beneath the surface. And then when we're afraid, then we don't want our kids to go through the same experiences, and I struggle with this sometimes, because sometimes you come home and you're like, Mommy, I went to the club last night and some guy touched me. I told you not to go to the club. I told you not to wear that skirt. So then we start to learn it is my fault that this happened, and that causes us to shut down even more. Right? Because you talking about it and saying, well, this is a normal part. We're not taught to trust the sensations of our body. Where you said, oh, I like somebody and maybe I feel like this little tingly feeling in my tummy and also tingling feeling in my vulva. What does that really mean? No, eso es malo. No lo hagas. You're going to get pregnant, right? Like the mind disrupts something that's very natural. The body's telling you something. Right? I'm sorry, you were going to say something. You were talking about your own myths.
No, I was just going to add to that I didn't get the talk. It was just like, oh, you're going to, go through puberty, menstruation. And I guess my sex talk was, if you ever, so cuando tú salías con un muchacho al cine, te pone una cola en medio de las piernas, si se te cae la cola, cierra las piernas. So it's like, I was like, I guess if I ever got the butterflies that you just mentioned, that was my trick, I guess. Which, good thing that I never really was out and about, but, and I guess my sex talk was like, tú tienes que ser señorita hasta que te case. So I guess that was their way of like saying, okay, you're not going to do it because I'm not going to teach you about it, and you're going to do it once you get married. So I guess it's not my problem anymore. So it is good. Like in this generation, we really need to, like, I want to teach my children about it, because especially in this world, like Jana says, she learned with TV. Like, oh my gosh, no, like we need to teach our children. We want them to come to us.
Yes. And TV is a romanticized version, right? Like the prince, Disney. No, cómodos, right? Siempre tienen plata, siempre es un príncipe, right? Siempre like it's very and what you were saying, Rosie, even there's a lot of good books out there. Good Touch, the Bad Touch, My Body, where since little, starting to teach kids your body and calling it for what it is, penis, vulva, right? Cuando el niño se empieza a tocar, right? Which is totally normal, right? Like, no te toques. Or if there's a sensual movie, no tapa los ojos, right? Like, what? This is only going to cause for me to want that more, right? And for a lot of us, you guys, just to self-disclose a little bit, when I eventually lost my virginity, which is another thing, virginity, right? Like it's supposed to be this amazing thing, but it's a mess for most of us. I think I've met few women counted in my hands of all the women that have come into this office that have a good, first sexual experience. It was because everybody was doing it. All my friends were doing it. And I'm like, what is that thing? But was it pleasurable? No, because in our sex education, they don't talk about pleasure and consent. Consent is a big one. So as Latina woman, bueno, me sacó, pagó, right? He's being nice. I guess this is what, and so a lot of our own sexual trauma, our own not consensual, right, experiences happen because of the lack of sex education. We don't learn to trust our body, right? And so I think that's a big one. That's a big one that definitely shows up in our culture. I think it stems from a lot of fear.
I also think that that like what Rosie mentioned earlier, like I grew up with like my grandma also telling me that like, oh, el amor solo llega hasta cierto punto, like goes from here to your belly, as in like you get pregnant. And then the one thing that they would always tell me is that like the fact that like, oh, if you don't, the whole Bible thing, like if you don't wait until you're married, then you're gonna go to hell. So that I grew up with that. And I'm one of those people that I waited to get married to lose my virginity. I did not do anything because in my mind, that like I grew up with that, like mentally that no, if I do that, God is not gonna want me, God is not gonna love me anymore. Therefore, I have to wait until I get married. But then I think about it and I'm like, I happen to enjoy it, whatever. Like that was the good thing is that I waited and I happen to enjoy it. But what about those people that wait and it doesn't work for them?
Oh my God, Jana. So you guys, for some reason right now, I'm actually working with some individuals and couples that waited, right? Like, and it's amazing how, and the common denominator in these couples and in these individuals, they tell me, well, I've waited this long for this really exciting thing. And then when we get down to it, it's awkward. I don't know what to do because in order for you to feel pleasure, it's almost like a betrayal of what you've heard your whole life. This is supposed to be for procreation. This is not supposed to be about pleasure. And that mental conflict causes the body to close up. And a body that's tense and a body that's anxious is not a body that can be playful and free. So many of my people, for some reason, I'm working with 2 couples right now that same story. We waited, and now that we're here, we just don't know. And talking about it becomes really difficult because nobody teaches us how to talk about sex well. And then, as Latina women, for some reason, we're fed this idea que los hombres, el ego, in Colombia, it's like with the men, las mamás, ay, mi niño, mi amor, mi bebé, and con las mujeres son fuertes, right? So it's like, a lot of my women say, well, Paula, I want to tell him that when he plays with my clitoris like that, it actually doesn't feel good. I'm like, okay, let's put words to your experience. Pero pobrecito, what is he going to feel? Maybe he's not going to. So this is something that I work so much with my women because culturally, this is what we've learned.
Right. Y se lo celebramos a los hombres que andan por ahí, y a las muchachas, tú tienes que esperar, todos los hombres no tienen que esperar hasta que se casen. I'm like, makes no sense.
Anyways, in Dominican Republic, in Dominica, that I find that culture extremely interesting, right? Porque los hombres, you know, I mean, I'm in love with culture. If I could go and travel and, you know, get lost in culture, that's what I would do. Pero, you know, with you know, the Dominican culture, que los hombres, infidelity. Bueno, si un hombre sale de la relación, es infiel, right? Like the first question is, what were you having sex with him? What does that have to do about why am I in the way, right? This is about him and his values.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then that brings me back to the whole self-pleasure of a woman as like what I grew up. When I asked my tias if they masturbate and this and that, they're like, no, like you're disrespecting your spouse if you're doing that. That's why you have a spouse. So can you tell us a little bit more about that myth? Because why is it healthy for us to do that? Like, why is it good for us to explore our bodies via masturbation?
Of course. Okay, guys, first and foremost, right, is, you know, the vulva is part of your body, right? It is important to explore because that's how you will reach sexual pleasure with your partner. That's how you can tell them, this is what I like, this is what I dislike, right? You know, and it's so interesting that you say that, Rosel, because when I was going to sex therapy school, right, I went to one of the first trainings, you know, they had us, we do a lot of self-reflection. So they asked us, you know, what was your mentality before you became an adult, when you became an adult? And if you want, ask your mom, what was her mentality? So I called my Colombian mom and she says, oh yeah, everything was fine, you know, homosexuality, birth control, even though we didn't really talk about these things. But she said something along the lines when I talked about masturbation. Oh no, that's what your dad is there for. Because men have also gotten a lot of negative message about their masculinity, right? They, you know, a lot of men even bringing in a toy. So let's talk a little bit about body parts, right? So we have the clitoris, right? The clitoris, for those people out there who are religious, God put it there for pleasure. The clitoris only job, only function is for pleasure. It does nothing else. For the women that do not know where their clitoris is, this is your homework. You're going to take a mirror, okay? Put a little music, maybe turn on some candles, be relaxed, and you're going to explore your vulva. Where's the vaginal opening, my labia minora, my labia majora? Where's my clitoris? And remember, you guys, clitoris have all types of shapes and colors, right? No two look the same. Don't let porn fool you. And the clitoris has 8,000 nerve fibers. You guys, almost double the penis, right? And so knowing how sensitive your clitoris is, what type of touch you like, is extremely important, because in order for you to have sex, it has to be sex worth wanting, right? Let's talk about, guys, if there's any of my ladies out there, which is very common, that have never experienced an orgasm, right? One fun fact is that only 1 of 4 women can have an orgasm through penetration. Orgasm through penetrations can happen, but it's not the norm. Let me tell you why. Let's go back to the clitoris. So even though the clitoris is 3.25 inches in size, it has 2 long legs. So only 25% of women have legs long enough that when there's penetration at the movement of the pelvic muscle, voila. We also know that once you go inside the vagina, there isn't a lot of nerve endings on the vaginal walls. Most of the nerve endings are in the clitoris. So for my ladies out there that mostly experience an orgasm to the clitoris, you are with the 75% of women. Only 1 in 4 women can have an orgasm through penetration. That's the norm, right? They can happen with, but clitoral stimulation is where it's at, right? And so sometimes buying a toy, Guys, also, how does it feel to go into a sex store? Because maybe your abuela religion is going to start to show up, right? Go into a sex store, touch the texture, see what feels good. If you've never experienced a clitoral orgasm, I would suggest buying a small vibrator, right? There's some sex stores that are really open and they will educate you on what's good and what isn't. You put it on top of the clitoris and you let your sensations guide you. If you're sitting there thinking, oh, am I having an orgasm? When am I going to have an orgasm? You're in your mind. Get back to the body, right? So self-exploration is extremely important for you because you need to know what you're like as part of sexual communication for your partner, to explore deeper with your partner. I mean, there's no negative, zero negative in self-exploration, masturbation, guys. So important. And if there are some ladies out there that only masturbate with porn, try it without porn and see how it feels. Because it's teaching your sensations to guide your pleasure. Orgasm or not. Orgasm is not always the end result, right? You can still feel pleasure without, but if you've never experienced an orgasm, that is the homework that I want to give the ladies out there that are listening to us.
Alrighty, thank you. I usually have a homework at the closing, so you did that.
Well, they're getting a lot of work today, I guess. And yes, Rose and Jana, any questions that you guys have for me? You know, as I talk about just breaking those myths, right? Like breaking, you know, but I wonder, Rosibel, is that if that's also kind of like your tia's trying to protect the ego of the man, right? This is what he's there for, right? I wonder.
Yeah, because for me, it was, I would always feel like, oh no, I can't do this because I'm disrespecting my husband, until I heard a podcast and I'm like, oh, that is so true. Because then after, I'll be transparent, ladies, after I started exploring more, I'm like, I can actually tell my husband what I want him to do. And it's like, I'm like, okay, this makes sense now, because I've been married now 10 years and I feel like sex is way better now than before. And it's because I know now more of my body. And that's where I wanted, so thank you for answering and giving us that homework, because that's what I wanted to get to. It's like, not about I don't want us to think about keep that taboo and like we're disrespecting anyone. It's just for us, for our self-care, because if we're putting the time and energy into that, because us as Latinas, we're like, oh yeah, I gotta respond to my man. And that is true. They're all like, oh, pero es que si tú no se lo das, él lo va a buscar en otro lado. And then I did grow up with that too. So it's like, I want to feel something too. So thank you for clarifying and educating us on that.
Yeah, guys, an afternoon little masturbation session for guys before you're gonna start work or gonna pick up the kids. What's wrong with that? Right? It's a release. It makes you feel good. It's in your self-care activities. There's like, take a bath, eat something yummy, go for a run, have a little self-exploration session. Why can't that be part of our list? Right? It is part of sexual health. It is part of health.
Thank you for mentioning that, because it did take me a while to understand, like, oh my gosh, like if I have an orgasm, I do feel like more light. And it's like, it is true. Like, can you tell us more of what is it that we release? Like, why do we lose a little bit of that stress, so that, we also don't, because sometimes I feel like women feel like it's a job to have sex. And no, I want us to feel it more of like, this is good for our health. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So two things I would say to that, right? Oh, you said something. Oh, it's our job. So you guys, an orgasm is just a release of sexual tension, right? We have oxytocin, the love hormone, right? It's like getting a blow dry on a Friday night, right? Our hair looks fabulous. So it's having an orgasm is a release of sexual tension, right? And it's also, you release a lot of hormones, you release a lot of things. So I think it's almost like a quick And not that we want to use it to relieve stress, but it kind of does. That's one of the side things that are going to help. And then you also talked a little bit about, Rosibel, you know, sometimes it may feel like a job. Guys, one of the things that people don't talk enough about is women's desire and how we work, right? So women, research shows that we need 15 to 20 minutes to get to the gate of where do I want to go? And foreplay does not only happen in the bedroom. It happens with touch, with a kiss, with a hug. It happens when I come home from work and the kitchen is clean. And it's not that we're obsessed with cleanliness, even though some Latino women are. It's that when I come in and the kitchen is clean, there's an emotional component that I say, man, you heard that I was really stressed this week. And you took it upon yourself to take something off my plate. And I feel lighter. And when I feel lighter, I'm more willing to be playful. The main issue for women is that we are thinkers, we're analytical, we're planners. So our main issue that gets in the way of being sexual is that the mind is on, and in sex is the only time when we want our mind to turn off. Okay, which is another great thing when we're able to have an orgasm mid-afternoon. We turn the mind off for a little bit and we can get back into whatever it is that we have to do. The other fun fact, you guys, is think of, let's use the analogy of a restaurant. So men, usually most men, there's exceptions to every rule, they go to the restaurant and they are really focused on the main course. And the main course is delicious, maybe some filet mignon. You know, women, we go to the restaurant and we're like, ooh, I kind of like the music. This is fun. You know, the lights and the smells, right? And maybe the server is kind of cute. You know, the appetizers. For us, women are extremely sensual, right? So it is, for women, desire works really different. The other thing, ladies, that I want to normalize, for those of you that are like, but I'm never in the mood and I don't really think about sex, that is natural because there's two types of desire: responsive desire and spontaneous desire. People that have spontaneous desire, they're walking down the street and all of a sudden they have a sexual thought and they're like, ooh, I'm feeling some kind of way, right? Responsive desire, I don't really think about sex, but in the right context, with the right person, right? All of a sudden, touch is involved, voila. So for those of you who have been in relationships for a long time, be intentional. Don't think about planned sex. But you know, say, okay, baby, Wednesday night, we're going to turn off, we're going to close our computers, we're going to put on some music. Guys, set up the space, because since our mind wanders pretty easily, music is going to bring you back. Smells are going to bring you back. Oil in your body is going to bring you back, right? And so setting an intentional space, because we've been fed this idea through the movies. You know, we see in the movies, guys, no foreplay. They look at each other and then they start kissing and then they both have an orgasm and everybody's happy and there's rainbows and unicorns. That's not how it happens in real life, right? So, you know, this natural thing, no, tenemos que ser intencionales. We're intentional about everything else. What is wrong with putting the kids to bed on a Friday night, putting a little bit of baby making music, even though maybe you're not trying to make a baby, right? Putting, you know, having some candles, maybe un cafecito or un vinito, right? And just being in the space with the other. So women's desire, because for a lot of my women, it does feel like a job. Pick up the groceries, pick up the kids, have sex with my husband. No, you are entitled to feel good about that experience too. And also, I love what you're saying, because through sex exploration, you've evolved in your sexual relationship with yourself, therefore with your husband.
Thank you, Paola. Learning so much. I love this. And our time's almost ending. So I want to, Jana, you have anything to add before we wrap up our sweet time with Paola?
Oh, I just want to say thank you, Paola, because this has been super educational and super helpful. But I do have one question though. Since Rosie and I are both like Latina moms, and we're in our 30s, like early 30s. And we have, I mean, even though our kids are, my son is 5, her oldest is 8. When did you think it's the right time to talk to them? Like, because we want to be different, right? We want to make sure that our kids do know early enough, right? Like about that, and are able to come to us and ask us questions, right? So when did you think it would be the right time for us to like start talking about that with our kids?
Yeah, guys. So love it, right? Because you guys, we have to break those generational traumas. Our generation, right? And it's hard because the way that I think about it, it's almost like standing, because generational trauma spreads like wildfire. So what you're asking me, Dana, you're standing in front of that, right? Like that fire and facing it. Guys, so I would say, right, first of all, if if the boys are playing with the penis, if the girls are, like wiggling in her chair, right? Like, okay, no hagas eso, o deja de tocarte. No, I'm calling it the penis, el pipí, whatever, for the name that it is, not la cosita o el palito. No, let's give it the real name, right? And the kids are gonna, we started this conversation, you guys, talking about curiosity. They may say, Mami, escuché, no sé qué. And, parents are afraid because they're like, oh my God, am I going to get them too much information? So I would say, ask, well, where do you hear that? What did you learn? And from then you can start to tell them, right? Like, but I would say, guys, 5 is a great age to start. There's, I can't remember this, Our Body, Ourselves, I think it's called, the book. But there's a lot of great books because, you read story time, right? And so today we're going to talk about our bodies. And let's read this little book, and they'll start asking questions, right? And as they get older, because remember, guys, and we are dealing with a technology saturated time where if your children type sex, what comes up? Because you can do, you type, we have porn, right? So even as the kids get older, right, teaching them, okay, this is unrealistic, right? Like, of course, being mindful of what they're watching. But I would say early, guys, 5, 6, 7, 8. I don't know if your 8-year-old has already started to ask some questions, but starting with like, well, papi, what do you hear? Right? And making it it is amazing how you just making it okay, having a very stable reaction. You don't have to go out of your way and be like, oh my God, tengo que enseñarles todo esto. But when he asks something, right? En vez de, oh, ¿en dónde aprendiste eso? ¿Quién te dijo eso? No. Okay, well, let's sit with that. Just you having that reaction, it is so powerful, Dana Fossi. Just having that reaction is so powerful because what you're saying is, it's okay to talk about this. This is a normal part of life. And even though inside you're freaking out and you're like, oh my God, I have to text Paula and see what the hell I should say, right? No, it's okay. We can talk about this. Okay, ask me more questions. And baby, I don't really know much. Like my friend had called me because her daughter had asked her, I think she's 11, what's masturbation? Right? And I told her, okay, just tell her something, that your body, you start feeling certain things in your vulva. And, some kids may feel it a little bit earlier, some kids may feel it later, but it's just this natural thing that your body kind of tells you. And I told her, and ask her, has your body kind of giving you those messages? And she said, no, mommy, just my friends have been talking about it. And she said, okay, good. Let's wait till she gets a little bit older and then maybe we'll just. So you guys really meeting them where they're at. Don't be so afraid of what I'm going to say. Just you normalizing and not having a reaction. Just that is powerful enough. And our bodies ourselves, I believe that they have it for different ages. Yeah, you guys look on Amazon. There's a lot of good stuff out there. A lot of child therapists that are creating really amazing books just to have the kids really normalize this experience from an early age.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I was giving a book for my son, which I still haven't. I read it once to him. So
But that's
I'll definitely.
That's okay. Yeah.
I'll keep looking into that. And yes, I do around social media. I did learn early to let them know, like, that's your penis. And my daughter, also, she's 3, and she already calls her vagina tota.
And she's like, good girl. And even that, to teach them, esto es tuyo, you touch it. It's okay if you touch it, right? But also, you guys, this also helps us with people, like for them to understand my body, my touch is mío, right? Because how many, kids go through sexual abuse? Boys también. Especially, I find you guys in my practice, a lot of boys that go through sexual abuse through an older woman, and they don't talk about it because soy hombre. And that, so talk about this early, so many things. But I love that your daughter's like, that's my tota. Great, right? Good. She knows her body parts. Beautiful. You've done a good job. And it doesn't matter if you were there once. They remember. Kids are amazing.
And I have to say, that was my mom. Esa niña demasiado vulgar. Ella dice teta, tota, culo. Like when I'm giving her a bath, or she sees me taking a bath, she's like, Mama, you're washing your teta? You're washing... Like,
I'm always going to see it as would we have the same reaction if she said, Mami, ¿te estás lavando el cabello? Mami, ¿te estás lavando las manos? Or would we say that's a vulgar child? Would we say that? No. So why it is adults that have attached those negative meanings? And that comes from our own generational stuff.
All right. Well, this is great convo. I feel like we could keep talking, but I want like people to reach out to you. So sé que no hablamos mucho español, pero Paola habla español y es una terapista sexual. Y para los que la quieran contactar, saber más de ella, so Paola, ¿dónde te podemos encontrar? So guys, I'm just saying, where can we contact Paola? Does she have a website, Instagram? How can we reach you?
Yes, guys. So Life Discovery Psych, PSYCH. I'm also in the process of doing some YouTube videos where I'm going to talk all about culture and the Latino culture and doing some webinars for Latinos en español and English. Porque you guys, I noticed that a lot of people, maybe they don't need the full-blown weekly therapy. So I thought about creating some webinars to reach more people for more people to be able to learn. And that is brand new, but that's an Instagram Sessions with Paola, SEXX. IONS, and that will also be on my Life Discovery site. But that's how people can reach me. I will post stuff on there when I'm doing the webinars. But it's just I appreciate you guys because this is a way to reach out. This is a way to get people curious and interested. So thank you.
Thank you. And guys, we'll make sure to have all this of these websites, YouTube channels in our description of our podcast. So vamos a tener aquí en la descripción el enlace de donde pueden encontrar a Paola, sus videos de YouTube y su página de Instagram. So las dejo. Aquí cerramos con esto. Muchas gracias, Paola. Y ya saben, la tarea es conocer nuestros clítoris. Vamos a hacer esa tarea. So ladies, thank you so much for tuning in. And we'll make sure to have all this info of reaching Paola in our podcast description. And as you know, our homework is to, take that mirror and explore our clitoris and just learning our bodies because it's for our health and also, to keep us a little bit relaxed as a mom, as a woman overall, because even, just as a woman, we always put a lot of things on our plates because we're tended to have to take care of others before ourselves. So let's start taking care of ourselves. Let's put this. I learned something new. Having an orgasm in the afternoon could be a new thing of a self-care. So I never thought about that.
Put it on that list of self-care.
Yes, because you were like on the to-do list as a morning routine or afternoon routine. So thank you so much. We'll definitely be staying in touch. Hasta luego.
Okay,
Ciao.
Gracias, guys. Happy Friday. Muchas gracias.